Okay, Neil. So, how did you make the transition from being your average mug punter to a bit of a master punter?
Well, I don't know about that. I think I might still be your average mug punter, actually, but there's definitely been times where I've felt like I'm a master punter, and they don't always last, those times. Um, I went to university uh, and I punted pretty solidly there. Certainly in the second and third year of that, um, I would be in the betting shop most days. Um, and I was the bookie. I was the bookie at uni. I used to take bets from about 12 different people. I mean, don't try this at home, kids. It was all totally illegal, and I didn't have a license or anything. What are you going to do? So arrest me. Um, it was a while ago, and yeah, I left college with money. Like I actually had money. I kind of, obviously we had a brilliant time then of not having to pay fees, and I actually got a grant. But um, yeah, most people leave college totally in debt, and I left with about 5 or 6 grand to my name, which was brilliant. I thought I was a millionaire, really, and I started going to the races every single day. I say every day. I mean, they didn't have racing on Sundays then, and I would probably go 4 days a week, and I would drive around the country and go. And yeah, I definitely thought I was a top pro punter. Uh, I wouldn't say that I knew everything about gambling. I was quite ignorant about horse racing. Really, I was learning. I mean, if you sat me down and asked me to explain exactly how horse racing worked and the pattern and handicapping at that time, I don't think I would have really understood all of that stuff. And actually, there was way less information out there. There was no internet. I used to kind of get a time form annual and spend a lot of time looking at that, like hours and hours and hours, and writing stuff out on pieces of paper. But yeah, and like, yeah, I guess the Racing Post was around, not, yeah, maybe at that time, and I was a big reader, but there wasn't that much good stuff you could read. I think I did a couple of books I really enjoyed. I think the Alan Potts books I liked. Against the Crowd, one of them was called, and Mark Coton, the original Price Wise, he wrote a good book which I really enjoyed called Value Betting, and I felt like I learned a lot from those guys. Um, but I got to about 27 years old, and I'd literally done nothing. I mean, I'd never had a job. I'd gone racing most days of the week. If I wasn't at the races, I was at the dogs or playing snooker or playing cards or going to a snooker tournament. That was another thing I used to do, and go to golf tournaments around the UK. Mostly because you could bet there. There was availability of betting and no tax to pay. Because we had betting tax, of course, then 10%, and they went down to 9%. So, yeah, I mean, it was hard to be a winning punter, of course, because of the tax. I mean, very few people win enough to cope with the ups and downs of life and pay all that tax. So going racing was kind of, it was compulsory. Really, it was the only way that you could make it pay. I wasn't really. I mean, I did it for 7 years at that time, and like I say, I started with 5 or 6 grand that I'd left college with. In 7 years' time, I still had 5 or 6 grand. I mean, I'd had a brilliant time. I'd lived in hotels, and sometimes I had a flat that I was renting in London, and I was travelling around. My car was doing 150,000 miles a year. Uh, it was pretty mental, um, and I had a brilliant time. But I was dedicating myself to my craft, I guess. I was just that was all I did. I just gambled every single day on one thing or another. And then one day Martin Pipe killed me, basically. Martin Pipe, I was laying his, I used to do a bit of laying to a couple of the bookmakers on course sometimes. So if they laid a horse at evens, I might give them 5 to 4 or 11 to 10 if I thought it was going to drift and I didn't fancy it. And yeah, there was a day when Pipey had 6 winners at Wincanton, and he might have had all the winners. I think there was 6 favourites, but like most of them were his. And then he had the first 4 the next day, and I basically just went out of business over those 2 days. And I called up my parents and I said, I'm not really doing this anymore. I can't afford the rent in London. Uh, this is bad. 27 years old, I had to call them up and say, like, can I come and move in with you? And my dad said, yeah, well, the rules of the house are you have to get a job. Uh, a three-letter word. And I applied for a load of jobs with no intention of getting any of them. I went to an interview to work for a tobacco company as a travelling salesman, persuading newsagents that they should switch to their brands. And when it looked like I was about to get the job, I said to the guy, he said, well, have you got any other ideas about how to expand the tobacco market? And I said, have you thought about hanging around outside junior schools, handing them out? And I think I'd have got the job if I hadn't have asked that question. So I must have not really wanted to work, I guess. But yeah, I can tell you when I feel like I kind of, because in that time I never really felt like I'd cracked the game. There were days where I felt like, God, this is it. I've got it now. I'm just going to be rich forever. This is so easy. But generally it was a struggle. I was always looking to just gradually increase my tank and bet slightly bigger. And, I had a small tank really relative to the amount of expenses I was paying. And it was hard to build up my tank and keep taking money out just to live on. And it wasn't really until I got a job working spread betting, which happened at the age of kind of 20, 28 or something like that, that I was getting a regular salary. And I basically had time to sit and watch sports and racing and gambling all day long. And also, the other brilliant thing about that was we would run off printouts of how the customers had done in the previous month and break it down sport by sport. I mean, this was all quite antiquated computer stuff. It would come out on a massive wodge of green and white striped paper with names, printed on, and it would take 5 hours to run the print thing. And I would be itching, waiting over the printer to look. And I'd say, this guy's winning at golf, and I can see where he's winning. He's winning on match bets. Let me go and look at the last 20 match bets he had. Can we see if there's any particular golfers? I mean, I think if you work in a bookmaker these days, they don't really let you kind of do that kind of thing. But I'm sure it's all computerized now, I guess, but I was really keen on breaking down how people are doing and why they're winning. And I learned a lot there. And yeah, there was a couple of quite smart guys that worked in spread betting at that time, a lot of smart guys actually. And I got involved with a few of them in some gambling, and that was probably the best time, really. I mean, we made a lot of money betting on horses, and to an extent where, if I'd have really pushed it, I probably could have quit forever at that point and not really had to do much else again, work-wise. And actually, a couple of them did that. And I'm still grafting away, so I'm obviously not a master punter. They're much cleverer than me.